The drawing in the window. I still have a copy of the drawing. Not the original. Evidence storage lost track of it years ago. Or at least that's what I was told. But I scanned it before handing it over. Every few years, usually on nights when I can't sleep, I pull it up on my computer and stare at it. I've spent hours looking for a rational explanation. I've never found one. The missing girl's name was Emily Parker. She was 8 years old when she disappeared. No ransom note, no signs of forced entry, no witnesses. Just gone. I've worked homicide, missing persons, and violent crimes for most of my career. I've seen cases that would keep most people awake for weeks. This was the only one that kept me awake for years. It started on a Thursday morning in October. The rain had been falling across Cedar Creek, Oregon for nearly 3 days straight downpour. The kind of rain that never seemed heavy enough to notice at first, but somehow soaked everything anyway. By noon, the rivers were rising. By evening, most of the town had stopped talking about the weather. They were talking about Emily. The call came in at 6:17 a.m. Missing child. Female. Age 8. Last seen the previous evening. I was finishing my second cup of coffee when dispatch forwarded the details.
At first, nothing stood out. Children went missing for all kinds of reasons. Custody disputes, runaways, family misunderstandings. Sometimes they wandered off and were found a few hours later, hiding in a neighbor's shed. Most of the time, there was an explanation. But the moment I arrived at the Parker residence, something felt wrong. The house sat at the end of a quiet residential street, bordered by pine trees. It was exactly the kind of neighborhood people moved to because it felt safe. Bicycles left in driveways, freshly cut lawns, American flags hanging from porches. The kind of place where neighbors knew each other's names. Patrol cars were already parked outside. Yellow rain jackets moved slowly across the property. Officers were documenting tire tracks, checking drainage ditches, and searching nearby wooded areas. I stepped out of my vehicle and immediately noticed the swing set. It stood alone in the backyard, moving. The wind wasn't strong enough to push it, yet one of the swings rocked gently back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I stared at it longer than I should have. A strange feeling settled into my stomach. Not fear, just the sense that something wasn't right. Something I couldn't explain. A uniformed officer approached me, carrying a clipboard. "Parents are inside," he said. "Anything?" He shook his head.
No footprints. No signs of entry. Nothing. That should have been impossible. 3 days of rain had turned the entire yard into soft mud. If someone had walked across the property, we'd know. Every footprint would have been preserved. But there was nothing. No footprints leading toward the house. No footprints leading away. Just untouched mud and falling rain. I looked back toward the swing one last time. It had finally stopped moving. The house itself looked ordinary. White siding, blue shutters, flower pots near the front steps. The front door opened before I could knock. Emily's father stood there. His eyes were bloodshot, not from crying, from lack of sleep. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he stepped aside. "Detective Mercer?" I nodded. "Yeah." He looked over my shoulder toward the rain-soaked street, then back at me. The expression on his face wasn't one I'd seen often. It wasn't panic. It wasn't grief. It was something worse. It looked like certainty, as if he already knew his daughter wasn't coming home. "Please," he said quietly, "come inside." And for the first time since taking the case, I felt a chill run down my spine. The inside of the house was warm. Too warm. The heat was turned up high enough that my glasses fogged slightly when I stepped through the doorway. A smell of coffee lingered in the air. Fresh coffee, not the kind made hours ago and forgotten. The kind people make when they're trying desperately to stay awake. Family photographs covered the walls. Birthdays, vacations, school pictures. Emily appeared in nearly all of them. Dark hair, bright smile. The kind of kid who seemed incapable of sitting still long enough for a serious photograph. I followed her father into the living room. Emily's mother sat on a couch near the fireplace. She looked up when we entered. For a second, I thought she was about to speak. Instead, she lowered her eyes and gripped a coffee mug with both hands. The mug trembled slightly. Neither parent looked at each other. That wasn't unusual. People handle grief differently. But something else caught my attention. Neither of them asked if we'd found anything. Most parents do. It's usually the first thing they ask, even before introductions. "Have you found her? Any news? Anything?" These two never asked. Not once. I sat across from them and opened my notebook. Let's go through everything one more time. Emily's father nodded. His name was David, 41. Worked as an insurance adjuster. Emily's mother, Rachel, taught second grade at a local elementary school. Neither had criminal records. No history of domestic disputes. No financial problems. No obvious red flags. Perfect family. At least on paper. "When was the last time either of you saw Emily?" I asked. David answered immediately. "A little after 8. Wednesday night?" He nodded. She finished dinner, watched television for a while, then went upstairs. "What happened after that?" "We checked on her around 10. Rachel finally spoke. Her voice sounded distant, like she hadn't used it in hours. She was asleep. I wrote it down. And in the morning, David swallowed. I left for work around 6. Rachel stared into her coffee. I went upstairs around 7 to wake her. Silence filled the room. When she finally continued, her voice cracked.
She wasn't there. I waited. People often fill silence with information they don't realize is important. This time, they didn't. Nothing. Just silence. The rain tapped softly against the windows. Was the window open? I asked. Rachel shook her head. No. Front door? No. Back door? No. I glanced at my notes. Any reason she might have left voluntarily? Both parents answered at the same time. No.
The certainty in their voices caught my attention. Most parents hesitate, even if only for a second. Not these two. It was immediate. Absolute. As if they knew something I didn't. As if running away wasn't even a possibility worth considering. I changed directions. Did Emily ever talk about strangers? No. Bullies? No. Anyone making her uncomfortable? Again, no. The answers came too easily. Not rehearsed. Not deceptive. Just exhausted. Like people answering questions they had already repeated 100 times. Then Rachel said something unexpected. Very quietly. Almost to herself. She stopped sleeping. The room fell silent. I looked up. What do you mean? Rachel hesitated. David shifted uncomfortably in his chair. For the first time since I arrived, both parents exchanged a glance. A look that lasted barely a second. But it was enough. There was something they hadn't told us. Something they didn't want to say. Mrs. Parker? She stared at the floor. For about 2 weeks, she said. She kept waking up in the middle of the night. I leaned forward. Nightmares? I don't know. What did she say? Rachel's grip tightened around the mug. She said someone was outside her window. A cold sensation crept through my chest. Did either of you check? David nodded. Every time. And? Nothing. The rain outside seemed louder now. I looked toward the dark hallway leading deeper into the house. How many times did this happen? Rachel answered. Almost every night. I wrote the information down. Did she describe anyone? No. Did she say what they looked like? Rachel slowly shook her head. Then she said something that made me stop writing. She never said it was a person. I looked up. What? Rachel's eyes finally met mine. For the first time, I saw genuine fear there. Not grief, not exhaustion. Fear. Every time we asked what she saw, she whispered, she gave the same answer. The room felt smaller somehow. The rain hammered against the windows. What answer? I asked. Rachel's lips trembled. Then she spoke 4 words I still remember years later. It wasn't supposed to be there. Nobody said anything after that. Not for several seconds. Then somewhere upstairs, a loud thump echoed through the house. All 3 of us froze. The sound had come from the 2nd floor, directly above us, from the direction of Emily's bedroom. The sound had come from the 2nd floor, directly above us, from the direction of Emily's bedroom. The sound was loud enough to shake something loose upstairs. A second later, I heard it hit the floor. Clack. Nobody moved. David looked toward the ceiling. Rachel's face had gone pale. I stood up. What was that? Neither answered. The silence was answer enough. I reached for my flashlight out of habit. Not because the house was dark. Because old instincts die hard. A noise in a house connected to a missing child isn't something you ignore. I'm going to take a look. David started to rise. I'll come with... No. The word came out sharper than I intended. If someone's up there, I don't want them hearing multiple sets of footsteps. He slowly sat back down. I turned toward the hallway. The staircase waited at the far end of the house. Dark wood. Family photos lining the wall beside it. The rain continued outside, rattling softly against the windows. For some reason, the sound seemed farther away now, as though the house itself was swallowing it. Step. 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 The stairs creaked beneath my weight. Halfway up, I stopped. Listened. Nothing. The stairs creaked beneath my weight. Halfway up, I stopped. Listened. Nothing. No movement. No voices. No footsteps. Just silence. The kind of silence that makes you aware of your own breathing. I continued upward. At the top of the stairs, a narrow hallway stretched before me. 3 closed doors, 1 bathroom, 2 bedrooms. At the far end stood Emily's room. I knew immediately. Not because of the star-shaped stickers decorating the frame. Not because her name was written in colorful letters across the door. Because it was the only door partially open. Just enough to reveal darkness beyond. I approached slowly. The floorboards groaned beneath my shoes. No response. No movement. I pushed the door open. The room was empty. For a moment, I simply stood there. The purple glow of a nightlight illuminated the room. Books lined a small shelf. Stuffed animals sat neatly arranged on a bed covered with a galaxy-patterned blanket. Everything looked untouched, frozen, like time had stopped the moment Emily disappeared. Then I noticed the source of the noise. A framed photograph lay face down on the floor. The glass had shattered. I crouched beside it. The picture showed Emily smiling beside a pumpkin nearly as large as she was. Halloween, probably last year. The frame had apparently fallen from a dresser. Nothing unusual. At least that's what I told myself. Still, something bothered me. The dresser was against an interior wall. No nearby window. No vibration strong enough to knock it over. I stood and scanned the room again. Everything was perfectly organized. Almost unnaturally so. Kids rarely keep rooms this clean. Especially 8-year-olds. The desk sat beneath the window. Crayons arranged by color. Books stacked neatly. Homework papers aligned perfectly. Not a single item out of place. Except one. A chair. Pulled back slightly from the desk. As though someone had been sitting there recently. I walked toward the window.
Rain streaked down the glass. Beyond it lay the backyard, the swing set, the woods behind the property, and nothing else. I checked the latch. Locked. No signs of tampering. No scratches. No forced entry. Nothing. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had stood here, watching. I turned my attention to the desk. Most of the papers were ordinary. Math worksheets, spelling tests, drawings of animals, school assignments. Then I found a stack of loose papers tucked beneath a notebook. Each contained drawings, dozens of them. At first they seemed normal. Flowers, cats, family portraits, the house, the backyard. Typical childhood artwork.
But as I flipped through them, a pattern emerged. A detail repeated over and over. At first, it appeared in the corner of a page, then behind a tree, then near a fence. A dark figure. Small. Almost hidden. I pulled several drawings aside. There it was again. And again. And again. Always watching. Always in the background. The same shape. The same outline. A tall figure. No face. No features. Just darkness. My pulse quickened. I spread the drawings across the desk. There had to be 15 of them. Every one containing that same figure. And somehow, nobody had noticed. Not the teachers. Not the parents. Nobody. I was examining the last drawing when I heard something. A faint sound. Behind me. I froze. A soft tap. Against the window. My head snapped around. Nothing. Only rain. I stared through the glass. The backyard was empty. The swing set stood motionless. The tree line beyond it swayed gently in the wind. Then lightning flashed. For less than a second, the woods lit up. And I thought I saw something standing between the trees. Tall. Motionless. Watching the house. The darkness returned before I could focus on it. I immediately unlocked the window and pushed it open. Cold air rushed inside. Rain splattered against the desk. I leaned out. Nothing. No movement. No footprints. No figure. Just trees. The moment lasted only seconds. But it was enough. For the first time since taking the case, I began to wonder if Emily hadn't been imagining things at all. I closed the window and stepped back. That's when I noticed it. A narrow gap beneath the bottom drawer of the desk. Something was wedged underneath. A corner of paper. Folded carefully. Hidden where most people would never think to look. I crouched down and pulled it free. It wasn't a school assignment. It wasn't a drawing. It was a page torn from a notebook. And written across the top, in shaky pencil, were 6 words that immediately sent a chill through me. He knows I can see him. For a few seconds, I just stared at the words.
He knows I can see him. The handwriting was uneven. Not unusual for an 8-year-old. But something about it felt different from the other papers. The letters were pressed deeply into the page.
Whoever wrote this wasn't doodling. They were frightened. I unfolded the rest of the sheet. At first, it appeared blank. Then I noticed faint pencil marks. Erased writing. I tilted the page toward the lamp and could just make out fragments of sentences. Outside again. Standing near the trees. Closer tonight. My stomach tightened. The paper wasn't a note. It was part of a journal. And judging by the pressure marks, there had originally been several pages before this one. Pages that were now missing. I searched the desk more thoroughly. Every drawer, every folder, every book. Nothing. No journal. No additional pages. Just that single sheet. Almost as if someone had removed the rest. A knock at the bedroom door made me jump. David stood in the doorway. "You find something?" For a moment, I studied his face, looking for any reaction, any sign he recognized the paper. There was nothing. Just exhaustion. I folded the page and slipped it into an evidence bag. Maybe. His eyes followed the bag. What does it say? I considered telling him. Instead, I shook my head. I'm not sure yet. That wasn't entirely true. I knew exactly what it said. I just didn't know what it meant. No evidence. Nothing. 3 days later, the official search was suspended. No suspects.
All right, team. We have
No evidence.
Move out.
No witnesses. No explanation. The case slowly faded from the news. Then from public memory. Eventually, it became another cold case. Another file gathering dust in a storage room. Another missing child who never came home. But that's not the reason I still think about it. That's not why I still keep a copy of the drawing. The reason came 6 months later. Long after everyone else had moved on. Long after the headlines disappeared. I was reviewing old case files late one night when I noticed something. A reflection. Not in the room. In the scanned image of Emily's drawing. At first, I thought it was a distortion from the scanner. A shadow. A smudge. Something meaningless. Then I enlarged the image. And enlarged it again. My blood ran cold. Because hidden in the bedroom window she had drawn was another face. Not outside the house. Inside. Standing directly behind her bed. Watching her sleep. Watching the room. Watching whoever looked at the drawing. I'd examined that image hundreds of times. I never noticed it before. Maybe it wasn't there. Maybe I simply missed it. I don't know.
I told you it was real. Jesus Christ.
What I do know is this. The
I told you
figure
it was
outside
real.
the window wasn't looking in.
Jesus Christ.
It never had been. It was looking at something already inside the room. Something standing behind Emily. something she never saw. I retired 4 years ago. The file remains open. Officially, Emily Parker is still listed as a missing person. No remains were ever recovered. No suspects were identified. No explanation was found. And every now and then, usually after midnight, I still open that
I told you
scanned
it was
image.
real.
I still zoom
Jesus
into the
Christ.
window. I still stare at that second face, trying to convince myself it's just a trick of the light. So far, I haven't succeeded.